What's going on, guys? Jesse DeRozier here with Hydrilla Gorilla Guide Service on Lake Guntersville. Today is November the 8th, 2024, and we're started a new series last week called What's on the Deck. So we're going to discuss today what lures we actually use this week during our guide trips, as well as the projected weather for next week and any changes that we anticipate that's going to take place. This week we did use a lot of the same lures that we had last week. We had a few that did change just due to the fact that we had some weather that kind of came through. It kind of changed things up a little bit. So without further ado, we'll get started with the first one. Same as last week. The primary early in the mornings has been an Alabama rig. During the night, the temperatures cool off and the shad have been pulling into the ditches adjacent to the flats that they're moving up on in the afternoon. So first thing in the morning, they're out there in that little bit deeper water. So from say 12 to 17 feet deep, you can find a lot of the bait balls if you idle through the ditches adjacent to the flats that they're on in the afternoon, if you know where those flats are. If not, go into some of these feeder creeks, idle the creek channels, put your side imaging on and find the bait balls. If you have live scope or some sort of live sonar, a lot of times you'll be able to see the fish actually setting underneath these bait balls. And when you do, take the Alabama rig and run it directly underneath those bait balls if at all possible. Keep a little bit of separation if you can, just below the bait ball. A lot of these fish are positioned underneath the bait looking up or setting completely down on the bottom. A lot of times, if they're down on the bottom, I'm going to let it get down a little bit farther. The second lure to that would be the jerk bait. A deep running jerk bait, whether it's the Megabass Vision 110+1 or the Stunna 112+1. Just getting that little bit deeper bill and getting down as close to the bottom of those bait balls as possible, or below them if you can, and separate yourself from the school will help draw strikes from those fish that are sitting underneath, looking up, looking for something that has gotten away from the pack, so to speak, that they can take advantage of. The next one that I would say that I would go to is a crankbait. And for that, depending on the depth, I'm going old school again, the old Normans. The lavender shad is a dynamite color to use this time of year, actually any time of the year, on shad lakes. But the deep little end and the baby end, both excellent choices. This one's going to run about 12 feet. This one's going to run about 8 feet, depending on the line that you have it on. But being able to, again, get below those bait schools if at all possible, just depending on how deep the creek is that you're in. You know, some of them being shallower, I'm probably going to run the smaller one. If it's a deeper creek, I'm going to go with the larger one. Some of those bait balls, if they are actively getting, fed on, going with an old jigging spoon is not a bad way to go. This one's actually an Academy Sports. You can see how little it is in comparison to my pinky. It is a smaller bait, but it does get 8. This will give you an idea of what one that has been chewed looks like. Now, I've had that one for a couple of years now, and I've added the teaser tail to it, which I feel definitely makes a difference with jigging spoons. But that's what it was. That's what it is. So if that gives you an idea of how well these actually get eaten, to be able to throw that through the school and let it flutter down to those fish and then popping it up, whether it's off of the bottom or just yo-yoing it below the school, either way will actually draw strikes. But the fact that it is so heavy, you can throw it a long ways. So if the fish do come up schooling, it's not a bad time to throw it either. Take it, make super long cast, let it fall into where they're blowing up, give it a pop almost immediately, let it fall a second or two, maybe 3, depending on how deep the water is, and then begin yo-yoing it again. That will look like a dying shad that's fallen down from the school, And a lot of times those bigger fish are not the ones that are actively engaged in actually blowing up on the bait. A lot of times most of those are your smaller fish, and your bigger bass tend to be swimming around underneath and actually just picking up the easy meal from the ones that have been injured. Sticking with the crankbait theme, this time of year, going back to a craw pattern is not a bad way to go. That being on this one's the Spro Little John, but on the grass flats, taking that, not when the fish are schooling, but just on the actual grass flats themselves, and working that through and kind of, ripping it free from the grass. We'll continue to draw strikes from now all the way through winter, believe it or not, in 3-4 foot of water, even in the dead of winter. If you can find a little recess that's got some decent grass in it, they'll still continue to feed on these all the way through spring. Once fish do get up later in the day and they get to schooling up on the flats, whether it's the back of a pocket, wherever it might be, again, going back to the jerkbait is a good way to go. For that, I'm going to go with a smaller jerkbait with a smaller bill. The reason for that is the bait that they're blowing up on most of the time is really, really small. And so trying to keep that profile as small as possible can make a big difference. One of the ones that I actually go to, believe it or not, is a really small jerkbait. That one's a little Rapala jerkbait, and I mean it's not much bigger than my pinky, so maybe 2.5 inches long. That thing gets eaten. It is light bait, so throwing it on an open face or a really shorter 6.6 medium action rod can make a difference in getting that out there. But that being in the mix of all those shad definitely is going to draw a lot of strikes. Sticking with the jerkbait profile, this week changed up to catching some on a credge. This is a new lure for me. I had not been using it previously. I was given this from a fellow YouTuber. Some of you guys may know him, Alex Rudd. Kind of hooked me up with my first credge here, and took it out while the fish were schooling. And keep your rod at, say, 3-4 o'clock and just a nice steady reel, and it has a very nice shimmying action across the top of the water, and the fish blow up on it just like they would a topwater. And when that happens, sometimes they'll miss it. When they do, the unique feature of this is to let the slack go, bow to the lure basically with your rod, and allow for it to retreat back in. It actually will dive backwards, tail first, back into the water. Look like that fish actually injured it, and they'll come back and actually pick it up and strike on it. Those schoolers as well, this week been out a little bit deeper due to the weather change that we had. We had some rain come through, some cloudy conditions and whatnot, and a lot of the ones that were on the far backs of the pockets or flats actually ended up moving out, more on the points and things like that. And as a result, I actually went back to the 1/2 ounce lipless to be able to get it down a little bit deeper. Also to be able to throw it in some of the wind that we've had. That 1/4 ounce just wouldn't fly near as far to be able to reach a lot of these schoolers that did finally decide late in the day to come up and get the schooling. So keep that in mind with the weather as it continues to change. Sometimes the adjustments in the size or profile or the weight needs to be made. It's all circumstantial. As far as topwater baits, this week I did have a change as well. I actually had a lot of the fish that were blowing up specifically in one spot that did not want to chase. It was like basically when the bait would come across that specific area, they would blow up just in that one area, and going to a pop-ar actually worked out better than the walking bait in that specific situation. It stayed directly in the strike zone a lot longer than what the walking bait would do. The walking bait, you're going to go through that zone so quickly. You're going to get a shot at, a fish, maybe two. But with this staying there, if there's, 3, 4, 5 fish blowing up, this is going to stay in that strike zone a lot longer, and you're going to get at least the potential to be able to hook up with, one of those numerous fish during that time that they do come to the top. The other top water is same as last week. The Vixen, Teckle Nick Knocker, Paycheck Baits, it doesn't matter. Basically just a bone style top water. Continues to be very productive on this lake this time of year. So that is always a good fallback. That bigger bait tends to draw a little bit bigger strikes, and it's always fun seeing them come up on that thing. Going to the grass flats, we ended up picking up the chatterbait quite a bit this week with the change in the weather that we've had, with the windy conditions and the rain. Chatterbait actually was a very good choice this week to fall back to, as well as the swim jig. So this can be worked through some of the areas that you can't get the chatterbait through. Some of that grass is thicker in certain areas, or maybe the grass flat's a little shallower, and makes it a lot more difficult to be able to get the chatterbait through. So to be able to fish clean and efficient, the swim jig is definitely a good fallback. The other one for that situation has been the swim bait. This is the producer swim bait. It's a 3.5 inch paired with an owner flashy swimmer, and that blue minnow color has just been absolutely phenomenal this fall. I've caught so many fish on that lure this year. So if you have not tried them, Producer actually just put their stuff out on Amazon, so you might be able to find them there. If not, you can check them out on Facebook as well. So get your hands on those. I promise you, if they're eating shad, that lure will get eaten. The last lure on the grass flats this week, with the stained up water that we've had still coming down from up north, from the hurricane, Tennessee and North Carolina, are still shedding a lot of that dirty water south, and as a result, the main river has still been stained up quite a bit. The creeks are clearing pretty nice, but the main river is still fairly dirty. So if you're fishing out on the main river, which I do quite a bit, going to a dark colored stick bait, doesn't matter what brand, just pair it with you can throw it weightless if you want, but I like pairing mine this time of year on either a 3/16 or 1/8 ounce bullet weight, and kind of getting it down, making contact with the grass a little bit more efficiently than if it was weightless. You can move a little bit faster that way as well. So last but not least is punching grass. So, or grass mats, let me rephrase that. The grass mats, two ways to attack those is, as I mentioned, punching. So again, with the stained water out on the main river, dark color bait, I think that one's 1.25 ounce weight is what I've been using. The mats are starting to thin out quite a bit now, so it's getting easier and easier to finally get the weights to go through, and the fish are moving into these mats more and more. As the water temp continues to drop, they're going to use it as a blanket during the night, and they'll be there first thing in the morning when you go punching. A lot of times it's, after the sun gets up and kind of gets the mat kind of warmed up, and they're trying to get away from the sun, that the fish are underneath these mats. Well, and as it cools off, the water temperature gets colder. These cold nights, that mat's warm from the sun during the day, and they'll tuck up under it at night. So first thing in the morning, they're finally there when you do decide to go punching. And if you're looking for better quality fish, that's the way to go. It'll definitely going to get you a lot bigger bite than any of these other techniques. But if you're looking to go out and catch numbers of fish and have a great time, anything that we discussed previous is going to get you those numbers as well as quality fish. But if you're looking for those, tournament fish, punching is definitely the way that I would be fishing for a tournament right now. Last but not least would be frogging. And everybody comes to Guntersville seems to want a frog. It's a great technique. This one actually has some BBs added to it. I weight my frogs if I can, to be able to keep them from getting knocked around when a fish comes up and blows up on it, as well as having a little bit of sound in there. Never hurts. Helps them to kind of find it amongst all the grass. So I usually will throw a weighted frog until the grass gets thinner and more sparse. As it does, I'm going to go to an unweighted a lot of times. Spro does a really good job on their frogs having a very soft-bodied frog, and their hooks are in a perfect position. You don't have to go in and be bending them with pliers or anything like that. Their frogs will fish clean. And I prefer, as most people do, either a white frog or a black frog seems to do really well. Well, I like a black and white frog. Mix the two. It's the best of both worlds. I feel like I'm going to get the bites that would blow up on a black frog, and I'm going to get the bites that blow up on a white frog. So Spro makes one with the black and white. It's a deadly combo. I really like that one a lot. So last but not least, I guess, would technically be for the guys that want to go out and be live scoping. It's not something that we typically do, in a guide service. It's difficult for these guys to be able to fish off the back of a boat if you've got somebody up front. But if you're a tournament angler, we've had some really good results from the guys that are fishing tournaments going out and actually scoping. So that's another technique that is on fire right now. So for you guys who are looking for that, it's definitely working on the lake if you're wanting to go out and actually do some scoping. So as far as next week, I looked at the weather before doing this, and they are showing the temperatures are finally going to come down this coming week, supposedly, according to the weatherman. They were showing sunny conditions and stable weather for this past week, and we ended up with a thunderstorm and some cloudy and windy days that was not forecast. So you never know with what the weatherman's predicting. But what they are showing is highs of around 70 degrees until later in the week. You get to Thursday, Friday, they're showing it finally dropping to like 64, 65 for the high. For the lows, instead of it being 57, 58 degrees, they're actually showing it being like 50, 51 degrees. So that change, 8, 10 degree change during the night temperatures is what we really need to be able to get these water temperatures to start moving in the right direction. If that actually takes place, then we should see some water temperatures continue to drop this week. They've been ranging in that 66 to 68 degrees. I'd like to see them this week with the cooler temps, by the time we do this next week, be down to 63, 65. Of course, that's depending on where you're at on the lake and time of day. Makes a big difference in, the overall temperatures. But that said, as the water continues to cool, the bites are going to continue to come more and more. I mean, we're getting bigger fish showing up in the shallow flats every single day. So these schooling fish are getting some better quality fish finally mixing in. As the water gets colder, the bigger fish, the 5s and 6s, 6.5s, are going to continue to come in and join in the mix. The gizzard shad are finally moving in on the shallow flats, which helps to draw some of those bigger fish into the shallow flats as well. So we are seeing some positive changes continue every day. So look forward to that in the next couple of weeks for these bigger class fish to be coming in to these shallows, and it's going to make for some fun trips coming up. So you guys have a great day. Hope to see you out on the water this week, and until then, tight lines.